back. Moving forward to our ninth lecture on expected topics, we'll be starting with some of the major developments in the field of economics. So the first one is the digital public infrastructure. Now the report of India's G20 task force on DPI was published, and this actually focused on financial inclusion, development and economic transformation. So how the budget should be allocated and the AI based model available for India Bhashini program, which is the digital program for language translations. Now again, there has been a very important development in the field of digital public infrastructure, that is mainly to promote services and access to vulnerable group of population, including women, small businesses, to provide better efficient service methods, and specifically to include the public and the private funding for the critical infrastructure which would be required for the digital public infrastructure. Now, there have been global efforts, for example, One Future Alliance, which is a voluntary initiative to build capacity building and technical assistance for low and medium income group. Similarly, there has been a global digital public repository which was introduced in G20 Leaders Summit for a dedicated institutional development. So those are some of the important topics. The next one is the angel tax. Now, the budget announced removal of the angel tax across all categories of investors to promote entrepreneurship and encourage innovation. Now, this has been abolished by the Department of Promotion of Trade and Internal Trade under Ministry of Commerce. Now, what has been the basic idea? So this tax applied to the income tax which is levied on the funds raised by unlisted companies or startups when their valuation is more than the fair market value. Now, if the market fair value is 10, but the subsequent funding round, the investor purchases it for 20, then the excess 10 which is there would be taxed. Now, this was introduced in 2012. The idea was to prevent any kind of tax evasion or money laundering. Also, funding of the startups. For funding of the startup, three things are very, very crucial, of which angel funds, private equity and venture capitalists are some of those. And then these sources are called as alternative investment funds, AIFs, which aggregate the private capital for investments. Now, these AIFs are divided into three categories, as I said. So, category 1, which is venture capital funds. Now, it includes the angel funds, social venture funds and infrastructure funds. Category 2, which does not fit in the category 1 and 3, and category 3 is basically on the trading strategies, which mainly includes the hedge funds and investment vehicles. Now, this tax has been abolished, which would enhance the ease of doing business. It would encourage the reverse flipping of startups, also facilitate investments, as Indian startups have experienced a decline in over 60% of the funding value, and then there have been related concerns for the same. The next is gig economy. Now, gig economy has been one of the major focus in the latest budget as well. So, providing healthcare coverage to gig workers, which account to a significant of around 1 crore gig workers in Indian economy. So, for their social security and welfare, there was a separate bill which was passed by the Karnataka platform. Now, again, this has been a major issue in the budget this year, right? So, the idea is there should be a grievance redressal mechanism, greater transparency, and one of the only states which has enacted the legislature for gig workers so far is Rajasthan. There have been various issues for the bills which does not address the critical issues such as minimum wages or working hours. Then again, the next thing that we need to understand is the gig workers are facing lots of challenges, uncertain future, no pension securities, no social securities, but their registration at eShram portal would be mainly, which is for the unorganized sector, would be actually a way forward to help them into a organized system and provide them some kind of benefits. These could be in the form of health benefits or related benefits. The next is transshipment port. So India inaugurated the cargo ship at the newly constructed semi-automated transshipment port as Vizhinjam International Transshipment Deepwater Seaport, which is located in Kerala. Now, this would reduce the cost of shipping, better connectivity, is able to handle larger volumes, reduce transit time, increase shipping options, and helps in port specialization. So, this port is owned by the government of Kerala and is designed specifically for container transshipment along with break bulk cargo. Now, this has been developed under the landlord port model, and it includes a public-private partnership which is based on design, build, finance, operate, and transfer model. The next that we would understand here is the India's structural transformation. Now, IMF has published a paper which is known as Advancing India's Structural Transformation and Catch Up to the Technology Frontier, which talks about the major growth trajectories and explains that the overall real GDP growth rate exceeds 6% since 2000. So it focuses on the various tax reforms, production linked schemes, expansion of digital infrastructure, and insolvency and bankruptcy code. Now these have been very important. Understand the four aspects very carefully. The next is 1,000 crore venture capital funds have been announced to support space economy in India, and this would be a boost for the startups, for the small and medium sized enterprises by bringing low cost, increasing their share, India's share in global commercial space, and making space sector a capital intensive domain, right? So this sector has been very important because space technology has seen a lot of import dependence, 12 times higher than the export earnings in 2021. So making it self-sufficient has been one of the major demands and the major ideas, and therefore this sector has been given a specific project layout of 1,000 crores. Now in space, which is the Indian National Space Promotion and Authorization Center, established in 2020, talks about promoting, regulating, and supervising space activities by non-governmental private entities, and Entrix, actually, which was founded in 1992, served with the launch of one of its important rockets. The next is NSIL, the New Space India Limited, established in 2019, talks about commercial activities and space utilization of technology in ISRO. Then you have another organization which is India's Space Association in 2020, a non-profit body, and there have been various sectors which have been given participation and allowances under the India Space Policy 2023. Amendments allowing up to 74% FDI in satellite manufacturing and 49% in launch vehicle have been given. The next is Sustainable Development Goals. Now the overall progress, as we see, is 17% on the track and 17% nearly on the regression phase across the globe. Now this is a global data, but globally we say overall less than 1/5 of the tracks are on track, which indicates that worldwide the goals which are to be achieved for sustainable development are running short of the promises made. So Brundtland Commission in 1987 talked about sustainable development. That means development in such a way that you are able to secure livelihoods for future generations, right? Now this initially started with Millennium Development Goals. Then after Millennium Development Goals, it was the Sustainable Development Goals. Now this focuses on major issues: poverty, inequality, climate change, environment degradation, and peace, and set up an agenda for 2030 to meet the 17 goals and 169 targets in a 15-year document. So this has been again a major aspect. The next one is e-mobility. So Government of India released the e-mobility research and development roadmap to support the net zero goals, and this was mainly for technical domains, research initiatives to help India become Atmanirbhar Bharat. Now there is lack of infrastructure, affordability, technology not at par, comparable equivalent vehicles aren't there, and then there is a resistance to innovation. Now all of this would require a e-mobility. So transport sector, which contributes to nearly 142 million tons of carbon dioxide emission from road itself, would be one of the major sectors that has to be taken into account, and transport sector consumes nearly 18% of the total energy. So if we are adapting electric vehicles, we are actually cutting on the total import burden of India. But there has been significant obstacles in shifting to e-mobility. First is the electronic vehicles coming in should be very very reasonable, and the battery cost for e-vehicles is relatively very very high. Now again, the number of charging stations and facilities which is available for e-vehicles is relatively less. So unless and until a mass scale development occurs, this would be a difficult task. Again, for electronic vehicles, rare earth metals are required, for example cobalt, lithium, nickel, which India actually runs short of, and it is mainly concentrated in the lithium triangle of Argentina, Bolivia and Chile. Now understanding another important aspect is city gas distribution network. Now in partnership with FICCI, there was a report charting the path forward in city gas distribution. Now this talks about interconnected system of underground pipelines to supply PNG and CNG. Now compared to other fossil fuels, natural gas burns more clearly, mainly has methane along with minor hydrocarbons. So as we can see, there has been a tenfold increase in the CGG network and fourfold increase in the domestic PNG lines. Now CNG is also used for vehicles, PNG for domestic sector, but also for industrial and commercial scale. So petroleum and natural gas regulatory body has talked about authorizing the entities to develop a GDC network, a CGD network, which is the city gas distribution network within certain areas to have a better development in the region. The next is coal sector in India. Now coal sector has a compound growth rate of imported coal share which has decreased from 13% to -2%. That means we are on a positive mode, indicating that there has been less import of the coal share, coal trade, and that is a factor which where we say we are moving towards either the renewable sources of energy or we are cutting down the dependence on the coal. Now the Coal Mines Act 2015 talked about the auctioning of coal mines, allowing private companies to engage in commercial mining, and the first such auction started in 2020. There were amendments which removed the restrictions on end use of coal for captive mining. Also, to provide a reliable market indicator, NCI, the National Coal Index, was established, where aggregating coal price from various sales channels was notified and auction price was given. There have been various measures for the same, which include the Integrated Coal Logistic Policy and Plan 2024, and talking about a comprehensive scheme for investments in coal gasification. Right. The next one that we would understand is the new schemes in the agriculture sector. Now this is something that we have been constantly covering up in Yojana and Kurukshetra. So the scheme for sustainable development of horticulture, Krishi Vigyan Kendra being established, digital agricultural mission, sustainable livestock, crop science, and better agricultural education are some of the ideas. But the main thing is the extreme low levels of productivity in agriculture in India. So compared to China and Brazil, the fragmented land holdings and the productivity is very low. In China, where it is 4.7, Brazil at 3.6 trillion per hectare, India only at 2.8. So which accounts for poor irrigation, poor soil quality, poor inputs that are being utilized. Now also the idea is to increase the variety replacement ratio by replacing the old seeds, bring in more efficient water management, better diversification of essential things. Now under this, we already saw, as we saw before, the digital agriculture mission, which is one of the major parts of it. Now this mission has some of the major ideas, which include e-governance plan, market-based interventions, drone for land mapping, national strategy for AI, and then focusing on the modern technologies, agriculture and smart farming, a mission for crop management, crop improvement, suggestions to farmers, support to the farmer. So this can be a very very important topic for your mains answer writing as well. Okay, the digital agriculture mission. The next one is livestock sector. So livestock census actually comes every 5 years, right? This census talks about the major genetic resources, how the population of various livestock have been changing. But the cabinet has allotted a specific fund of 1,700 crores nearly for a sustainable livestock development production scheme, which talks about dairy production, focusing on the antimicrobial resistance among animals, creating gene pools, genetic resources. So this includes the Rashtriya Gokul Mission, the National Livestock Mission, expansion of Kisan credit cards, dairy development, and livestock health programs. The idea is contributing for mainly the small and marginal farmers, landless farmers, landless laborers, and focusing on the various systems. For example, a national animal disease reporting system for digitization of real-time diseases or any outbreak in the animals, focusing on first aid, artificial insemination, deworming, and vaccination, talking about the facilities for staffing and training. So those are some of the important things that have been discussed here. The next is the horticulture sector in India. Now horticulture again has been receiving a lots of fund. There is a program which is called as Clean Plant Program under Mission for Integrated Development of Horticulture. Now this aims at sustainable and eco-friendly agricultural practices to reduce the import for planting materials. This has also come in line with Mission Life and One Health approach. Also, this sector is the one where we have various sub branches. For example, pomology for fruit, olericulture for vegetable, floriculture for flowers, arboriculture for small shrubs and trees. So, if among this, the major component is fruits and vegetables, and the total contribution of horticulture to agricultural gross value addition is 33%, and India is second in the terms of fruit and vegetable production next to China. Now, in India, we lead in the production of banana, mangoes, and papayas. There has been a leading production in onion, ginger, okra, second in potatoes, cauliflower, brinjal, cabbage, and other related vegetables, right? So the next is the World Bank Group Guarantee Platform. Now this came into operations in 2024, and guarantee is to bring all guarantee products and experts from across the World Bank groups under Multilateral Investment Guarantee Agency, and this focuses on enhancing the credits, attracting investments, mobilizing capital, supporting the sustainable development, long-term financing, and financing solutions flexibility, right? So there has been global partnerships for across various institutions like the International Bank for Reconstruction, Development Association, Finance Cooperation, Settlement of Investment Disputes, and so on. The next is SARC currency swap. So RBI has announced a framework for currency swap agreement for South Asian Association for Regional Cooperations, and under this, RBI would enter a bilateral swap agreement. Now this would ensure financial stability, regional cooperation, reduced currency volatility, and lower the interest cost for the investments, right? The next one that we would understand is the PM Mudra Yojana. Now this was launched in 2015, and the idea was to provide credit for micro and small enterprises to bring them into a formal financial system. So focusing on land transport, food, community services, and textile is some of the major aspects under this scheme. Now the next one is the credit deposit ratio. Now the credit deposit ratio actually talks about RBI's concern for higher credit deposit ratios of the bank, and the idea is to reduce the gap between the credit and the deposit by lowering the credit deposit ratio. Now this is a matrix which reflects the percentage of loans the bank has issued in relative to the total deposits that the bank has. Now this ratio has been rising, reaching at a peak of 78% in 2023. Over 75% of the banks have a credit deposit ratio above 75%, which is a very big figure. Now what is the main thing that is important here? Now when the credit deposit ratio rises, that means there is a huge number of vehicle loans, personal loans, housing loans that are there in the society. Now for economic growth, better bank profitability, liquidity management, and financial stability, this has to be checked. Now, this impact actually is on the investment securities and loans. Banking sector is struggling to meet the payment obligations on time, and borrowers are actually failing to fulfill the obligations there. The next is RBI's guideline on fraud risk management. Now, this again has been a very, very important guideline which actually banks need to use the data analytics to understand any unusual processes. There is non-hold time directors which have been working for understanding that. The next is domestic money transfer. Now, RBI has talked about revising the domestic money transfer framework, which has been which governs the money transfer offered by regulated entities. So, it was introduced in 2011 under the payments and settlement system, and there has been a significant increase in the speed, cost effectiveness, economy, financial inclusion, and flexibility. The next is Nobel Prize in Economics in 2024 to Johnson and Robinson for formation of institutions and influence on economic prosperity. So their research talks about societal developments for the national well-being. So the key findings basically is leading to reversal of fortunes, where historically poor regions became wealthier while formerly prosperous areas are declining in the economy, and colonialism has influenced the global prosperity. So this transformation started somewhere in the 16th century, and this has been one of the major ideas of their research, and their impact on economic and political institutions has again been studied. So those are some of the important key topics. Now note that we are in these lectures only focusing on some of the key topics that could be important for your upcoming UPSC examination. We definitely recommend you can go out to the handouts and read these, or refer the same topics and create your or relate and develop or refer the content whatever you are referring. But these topics are really important for your upcoming examination. Stay tuned for our next lecture on economics under the expected series. Thanks for joining in.